All right, so hello everybody, my name is Shanoa Velarde. I am a student program specialist at UNM-Taos. I want to say thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you to Tiwa Kitchen for providing a very delicious meal. So first and foremost, we want to start the evening off with a blessing, and so we'd like to call Mayor Pascual Maestas to do our blessing for us.
Thank you, Shanoa. Go up by your heads. I'll ask and pray that through our actions tonight, we bring our communities together to address the many issues that we face in Taos, including housing, substance abuse, mental health, providing for our children in the future, and ask that we come together and work together across communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So we'd also like to give a chance, what's next in the program, which is an honor song by the Taos Pueblo singers, Gilbert Suazo Sr., Curtis Sandoval Sr., as well as John Cruz Romero. So if we could get you all to the stage to provide our honor song for this evening for the firefighters who are currently as working for Taos Pueblo, but also those in the past prior to tonight. So we'll have you all come up now. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the honor song we're going to sing is the Taos Pueblo anthem of our flag song. So would you please stand in honor of our elders, our old-time firefighters, as we sing this honor song for them.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to call our Chancellor of UNM-Taos, Dr. Mary Gutierrez, up here to say a few remarks. Also, November is National Native American Heritage Month. So this event is also put on in conjunction with that programming that's happening across the country right now. So, Dr. Gutierrez.
On behalf of the faculty and staff and students of UNM-Taos, I would like to welcome all of you here as our honored guests tonight. It is our honor to host this event and to really provide a place for a very important reflection and opportunity to understand history and work of important elders. So again, we're very, very happy to be able to host this event. The University of New Mexico Taos sits on the traditional homelands of the Red Willow people of Taos Pueblo. The original peoples of current-day New Mexico, Pueblo, Navajo, and Apache, since time immemorial, have deep connections to the land and have made significant contributions to the broader community statewide. We honor the land itself and those who remain stewards of this land throughout the generations, and also acknowledge our committed relationship to the indigenous peoples. We gratefully recognize our history and work to maintain healthy, fruitful relationships with our neighbors for generations to come. So this night is an opportunity to honor elders from Taos Pueblo, to understand and to thank them for their work in tending to and being stewards of the beautiful land that we have here, and to use that understanding to look forward and to understand how to look forward. So I'd like to acknowledge our elders who are with us in spirit, our elders whose images have been playing on the screens tonight, and our elders who are in the room. Also, the learning that we have from elders in terms of taking care of the land is work that we're also committed to at UNM-Taos. The Northern New Mexico Climate Change Corps is a program that's housed at UNM-Taos, and I'd like to introduce Karen Lovelace, who's going to talk about the program. Many of our students who are in the program are with us here tonight as well. Karen?
Thank you all for coming. What a great turnout. What a great variety of faces. I am Karen Lovelace. I have the privilege of teaching at UNM in the Natural Resources Management Program. And the Northern New Mexico Climate Change Corps is a program that supports students in completing the 2 years required to get their certificate at UNM. We support the students both financially and with advising and mentoring, and I think mostly the peer support. It's a group of people that are going through the program together, and for me it's incredibly inspiring. These young people are so passionate about doing good in the world and making change and fixing some of the things that have gone wrong with our natural resources. The other job that I do, in addition to working at UNM with the Climate Change Corps students, is I work in a program called Emerging Indigenous Ecologists. This is a program that's a collaboration between Taos Land Trust and Vista Grande High School. And these are all high school students, and they're just really interested in learning about nature and ecology and thinking about what they're going to do in their future. And the program, the philosophy of the program is teaching ecology as well as bringing in indigenous knowledge about our resources. So this event that's happening tonight really came about as an intersection between these two programs with the inspiration of bringing indigenous knowledge to our study of ecology and our approach to natural resources management. And we actually had this field trip that was a joint field trip between the high school and the college students. And on this field trip with Mr. David Gilroy of Taos Soil and Water, he was showing us how when you pull a core out of a tree and you see all the tree rings, and you try to understand that history from the tree, but the best way to understand it is to go ask some of the old timers what was going on back at this time when these tree rings were doing a different thing. And it just, in that moment, really gelled for me that we love our elders and we want to hear their stories, and it's the right thing to do to honor them, but we actually really need their stories in order to solve the problems that we have right now. And these young folks, both in the college and in the high school, going forward with their lives in this world that's unprecedented challenges, we need these stories, we need this knowledge and this wisdom that is here, and we need to keep it alive and honor it. So with that, I'm going to hand this off to an incredibly inspiring student of mine who is one of the driving forces behind this entire event, Mr. Dominic Val.
Phone is disconnected.
Good afternoon, everybody. Everybody full? Everybody good? Mr. Mayor, we did it. No church stains. Yes, we have a wonderful event planned for tonight where I feel very fortunate and very lucky tonight to have these two gentlemen on stage. I'd like to introduce Mr. Adolf Samora, Senior Tribal Council member, also one of the first members of the first firefighting crew, the Taos Pueblo Snowballs. And also on stage with me right now is also another gentleman, Mr. Gilbert Suazo, another Senior Tribal Councilman, a very influential figure in the Battle of Blue Lake, and also our Sequia water settlement, the Beta water settlement. And now tonight, I feel very honored to hear the story again from my Uncle Adolf Samora. I spent many times with him hearing this story, and it never gets old. And I believe this is a time where now is the time where we honor our elders while we still have them. Too many times we honor our elders when they're gone. And this was kind of my dream, or one of the things I wanted to do was honor my uncle by having everybody hear his story, the iconic Smokey Bear story, a national figure that has been used by the federal government and the National Forest Service for many years. And now we're very fortunate now to hear the actual story of how the Snowballs got their name, and also how these gentlemen rescued Smokey the Bear to become such a national icon. So now we're going to start the story off. Uncle Adolf speaks, his first language is Tiwa, his second language is English. So he'll be talking a little bit in Tiwa, and Mr. Gilbert Suazo will be interpreting some of the stories that he'll be telling us. After the talk is done, we'll have a question and answering, so pay attention and have your questions ready. I think I broke it. There goes my financial.
Power off.
You're fine, you're fine. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been asked by my tribal elder, Adolf Samora, to help him with his story. He's going to be speaking mainly in our Tiwa language, and I'll translate for him to share his experiences with you. Mr. Adolf Samora is now 91 years old, and his Indian name is Yawili. That means going out to sing. He's a cultural leader at the Pueblo, and he is a lifetime senior tribal councilman at Taos Pueblo. So Mr. Samora in his early years worked with the U.S. Forest Service fixing fences, trails, clearing debris in the forest. That was his early experience in working with the U.S. Forest Service. And he was telling me that his first firefighting experience was when he was about 18 years old, so that would be in about 1949 when he first went out firefighting with the fire crews at that time.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Adolf Samora. I used to be a firefighter crew for a long time till Ed Instrom retired, and then the firefighting's all gone. I don't know why. So it's been done. So no more Taos Pueblo Snowballs. Thank you.
Like Mr. Samora said, in those early years, Ed Instrom was the Forest Service supervisor here at the Carson National Forest. So he's the one that the Pueblo mainly had communication with. And Mr. Samora earlier had related that at that time there was no formal fire crew yet. And fire calls, whenever they came in, was mainly volunteers that we rounded up both in the town of Taos area and then out at the Pueblo. And contacts at the Pueblo were a couple of people, Telesfor Trujillo, Numbatu, and then Chayuta, Lupe Martinez. These were the main contacts over there at the Pueblo. Domina, UNM.
Those men were the ones that he named it, and the other older guys were Corina Romero, Albert Martinez, Luis Romero, and Tony Martinez, and Loreno Mirabal, Pat Suazo, Joe Romero, John Lohan, Ralph Mondrigan, and his dad, Don Mondrigan. Philip Martinez.
So as Mr. Samora said, that during that time, when the crew was rounded up, the non-Indian crew was known as crew number 1. And then the crew from the Pueblo was noted as crew number 2. So that's the way that they were being referred to at that time. And as Mr. Samora related, when fire calls came in, they went to the war chief's office at the Pueblo. And as more fire calls started to come in the early 1950s, it became a regular summer activity for the men at the Pueblo. The names that he mentioned are some of the original snowball, who would become the snowball firefighters. And these were men that were at the Pueblo. Some of them were veterans. Some of them were Taos Pueblo residents. But when a fire call came in, then it went to the war chief's office. And sometimes these fire calls interfered with some of our cultural activities at the Pueblo where the men were needed. So it was up to the war chief whether he was going to release the men to go out on a fire call or not. But many of these calls were coming in, so it really became important to determine what the Pueblo should do when these fire calls came in. So the war chief then was talking with these men, that some of the leaders, like was mentioned here, on Osip Albert Martinez, Lupe Martinez, men like that, Taos Trujillo, they were speaking with the war chief to have some decision made whether they were going to become an organized crew.
We talked to the war chief, and from there he went to the governor's office to let them what we're doing, and the councilman, with councilmans, what we're doing. So we went in there a certain day to talk to them. Every one of them liked it, to make a fire crew. That's how it came. We make a day for the men that want to go, but we call it a Spanish ditch down by the river. So just 6 guys came. And then another weekend we tried, called Florida. 18 guys went up there. And the third time, when we went up there longer, and 28 guys went up there. So that was good. So Instrom was talking to the guys how it goes, firefighting. And the tools, what's the tools name? The tools were laid right in front of us. That's how it came, snowballs.
So as Mr. Samora has related, there had to be a tribal council discussion, and approval to form a fire crew. In this way, the conflict with the cultural activity schedule, they would be allowed to go out to firefighting, even though there might be conflicts with the cultural schedule. But even at that, I remember there were times when we had important things going on at the Pueblo, the war chief would say, no, they can't go out this time because I need the men to be out here to be doing this or that for our cultural activities. But as Mr. Samora related, they, once they got approval from the tribal council to begin forming a crew, they started to hold these meetings he's talking about. And at first, you know, they were getting very few responses to these meetings. But in the last meeting that they had up in the canyon, what Chibik, you know, a place called Chibiki up there in the canyon, they had a big meeting up there. The Forest Service people were up there too, and this is when more men showed up over there. And then interest really picked up about having a fire crew. So this is how they started to get organized, and then training started to be provided, like fire tools, all that, where they were trained on what you call different kind of fire tools and what they're used for, so that they would then become basically a trained crew. But even at that, you know, when a fire call came in, there was so much interest in going out for firefighting that it basically became first come, first served. The people that were signing up, the men would be there, and men would rush over there to be signed up to be on that fire crew. And of course, because the pay was good pay, you know, there was a lot of interest in men wanting to go out for firefighting. So in this way, there was, in a sense, competition. So you had to be there early to get signed up in order to be part of the fire crew. So when the fire call came in this kind of announcement or any other announcement, our war chief or our governor, depending on what the subject of the announcement is, will go up on top of the high Pueblo building there. And there he will holler in every direction. In this case, if there's a fire call, the war chief would go up there on top of the Pueblo building, and he would be hollering in every direction, announcing to the men that there's a fire call for them to come to the Pueblo and to get ready, get their equipment ready and sign up to go out on the fire call. So this is an old-time traditional way that our people, our leadership would announce different things to the people. So the same kind of protocol was used when a fire call came in to announce from the housetop by the war chief hollering up there, Masawa Amana, to gather the men so they could come and sign up for the fire. As we're explaining the war chief, you know, he's responsible for for the protection of the community and our tribal lands. So whenever there would be a threat to our community or to our lands, the war chief would go, like I said, on top of the building, and they would holler to the community what the threat was, and in this way the community would respond and then would get ready. And in the case of the war chief, in more recent, later years, there used to be like a metal firebox wherever his office was. That firebox would be there, and this is where fire tools were kept. So whenever there was a fire there, then he would open up the box. Men would come by there to get the fire tools and respond to wherever the fire would be. And mainly at that time, it was within the Pueblo lands that that particular protocol was being used for.
We used to go out in California, I don't know how many times, in Montana, Cody, Wyoming, Utah, all over. We used to fly out from Santa Fe or Albuquerque. Just what we used to do.
Yeah, so as a crew got active, they would be taken all over the Western United States to fight fires. But early on, as we're saying, the crew did not have a name yet. They were being referred to as crew number 1 or crew number 2. The Pueblo crew was crew number 2. So when a fire call would come in, then our men would respond. They would go out on a fire. And one of those times that they went out, Mr. Samora was saying that they went down south.
We went down there to Alamogordo fire, and we stayed about 2 weeks out there. When we complete the fire, we had a special day called Mabot Day. All the smoke we find, we put it out. And the next day, we're coming home, and we found out one of the officers, ranger, called our ranger in front and told him to make a name of ours. So he came to the table and told us he made a name in the way. I don't know where it was. It was a desert. There's nothing out there. So the guys went to stop by the highway. When they got out, the snow was coming. And the Instrom, our boss, told us, me and Delorina were the last one to get out. And he said, maybe it's gonna snow. And Delorina turned around, yeah, snowballs, he said. So we take the name that way, snowballs.
Yeah, as Mr. Samora was relating, they were coming back from a fire down south. And, you know, when the men traveled like that, it was always a lively crew. They would always be singing, you know, in the bus. whenever they were being transported, they were always singing, you know, Taos Pueblo songs. So it was always, you know, a nice time. That's how they kept their spirits up. So they were on their way back from down south, Alamogordo, and like he's saying, somewhere along the way they made a rest stop. And when they stopped there and they got off the bus, it was snowing. It was snowing quite heavily. And apparently there was, the snowflakes were large snowflakes, and the men were standing out there, and the Forest Service supervisor I was with him noted that it was snowing. And one of the crewmen, Del Reyna, Chubo is his name, Indian name. He said, "Yeah, snowballs," he said. And then he looked over there and he looked at the men that were standing around and he hollered, "Hey, you snowballs!" He hollered at them. And then Ed Instrom, who was with him, the forest ranger, said, "Hey, that's a good name. That's a good name, snowballs." So from that time on, the name became the Snowballs. This is the story that Mr. Samora relates as he recalls how they got this name, the Snowball name. It became a very famous name over the years. The name stuck, and to this day, you know, the name is still out there, the Taos Pueblo Snowballs.
I'll tell the story about Smokey the Bear. We were at El Capitan on Ruidoso. But the last day, we went up there walking. So we got there about 9:30 in the morning. So we split up our crews. That is to have number 1, number 2, number 3. So we split up and start looking around the place where it burns. Look for the smoke. And I saw Taos Pueblo Trujillo and the ranger were out there about 50 yards from me. And he pointed a finger at something. And I was looking around and I saw something jumping in the ashes. The ashes were about 6-7 inches deep. And I just stand still. And here it comes in front of me. There was an old pine tree laying down. And he just lay down on the side. And I just stayed quiet, and I called Taos and that ranger. And came over, and we were looking at it. Sometimes she cries like a cat. And Taos took his jacket off, he got a Levi jacket on, and he threw it to him. And he wrapped it, and he picked it up. So we see that little bear. He got all his hands got blisters all over. So the other fire crews came over and take a look, each one. And then Taos asked us, you know, are we going to let him go? And one of the guys from back standing, there's a bed down there at the fire camp. So this ranger that is with me, take it down to the camp. After that, we didn't hear nothing about Smokey till long years.
Because Mr. Samora is saying they were at a fire in the Capitan area, and they had gotten basically done with one fire, and they were supposed to come home. But then another fire flared up in the area, so they were kept on site there. So while they were down there, they were sent out on a mop-up operation out there, and he was with these two gentlemen that he mentioned, Taos Trujillo. He's a Taos Pueblo man. He's deceased now, but Nobatu, White Knight, that was his Indian name. He and this forest ranger were with Adolf was with him, and they were going through doing the mop-up operation, and then he said Telesfor was a little ways from him, and he called him, and then he pointed in one direction there. So Mr. Samora said he looked over there, and like he's saying, he saw something coming through the ashes. The ashes were deep, so he couldn't recognize right away what it was, but something was coming. And then he realized that what it was a little bear coming through those ashes. So he said he hid behind a tree. There was a tree there. He stood behind a tree, so the little bear kept coming towards him, and like he's saying, there was an old rotten pine tree that was laying there, burnt, and that little bear came around and laid right there beside that pine tree, and he was laying there, and then Telesfor came up there, so him and Adolf were looking at the bear laying there, and he said he told him, what are we going to do with him? And I said, well, I think take your jacket off and put it over, pick it up so he won't scratch you. So that's what Telesfor did. He took off his jacket and threw it over the little bear there, and then he picked it up. And when he picked it up, they were looking him over, and the poor little bear, his hair was all singed, and they looked at his paws. He had big blisters on his paws, and he said that he didn't have any claws anymore. It looked like the claws were all melted. And this was the condition of the bear, little bear, when they first saw it there. So they were holding it there, and the other ranger that was there with him came up and Telesfor gave him the little bear wrapped up in that jacket. And apparently there was a veterinarian that was in that camp that they were at, so the ranger then took down the little bear cub down there to the camp there to be treated. So Adolf and the rest of the fire crew continued their mop-up work in the area. They didn't, nobody told them what happened to the bear after that. And it wasn't until sometime later that there was a lot of publicity about this bear being found in that area there. And there was a lot of mention, a lot of credit being taken who found the bear. But apparently nobody remembered it was the Snowballs that had found it. So they weren't even being mentioned as being the ones that found it. But it was not until several years later when Mr. Samora related his eyewitness experience and how they found the bear, that it was realized that it was the Snowball crew that rescued that little bear there from that from those deep ashes there, and handed him over to the ranger to be taken down. So this is how the Snowball crew finally were able to be acknowledged as the ones that did rescue that little bear that became the famous Smokey the Bear.
After that, until we find that little bear, the ranger took down to the station, and we have never heard again what happened to him.
So we appreciate that after many years that the Snowballs were finally acknowledged as being the ones that did rescue the little bear that became Smokey the Bear. So this is why Mr. Samora is here with us to relate and share with us his personal story as an eyewitness, being there at that time when they rescued this little bear. And finally, in summary, over the years, our Snowball crew went to many fires throughout the western United States, and they established an outstanding firefighting reputation. Many of the men that would go out on these fires, as you can see from some of the photographs, that wore their hair traditionally long in braids. And these men were always being photographed wherever they went. They were being photographed because they looked like, you might say, real Indians, but this is how our men would go out there wearing, even taking their blankets with them, wrapping them around their waist. And you can see in these old photographs how they were dressed. This was a regular way of dressing at Taos Pueblo. It wasn't for show or anything, the way our people were dressed in those days. And of course, our Snowball crews over the years, they had many dangerous experiences out there in the forest. And I'm sure some of them that are out here now, the ones that were able to go out on these fires in later years, know what kind of an experience that they've had going out to these fires. But they also had some very good times when they were out there. And like I was saying earlier, whenever they were being taken to a fire and when they were out there and coming back, they were always singing, always singing songs. And sometimes there would be other Indian fire crews from other tribes there at the same fire, and at nighttime, and they would share their dances and their songs around the campfires there. So this is how they passed their time and had good times out there in spite of the dangerous jobs that they were doing out there in the fires. So many of our older Snowball crew members, many of them are gone now. There's some younger ones that joined in later years that are still around, but unfortunately we don't have an active full crew like we used to have back in those days. Personally, I had the privilege and honor to join my elder tribal Snowball members including Mr. Samora, on one fire call out to California in the Sequoia National Forest. I was only 16 years old at that time, and at that time there wasn't like an age requirement. A lot of the requirements that are there were not there at that time. Even physical requirements, were very lenient back then. So anybody that signed up could go out in the fire. And at 16 years old, I went out there and I was able to see what our men that went out to these fires, what they experienced out there. And we did have a close call of almost being trapped by in one fire that one day. And our older crew members there, Albert Martinez and them, how, the precautions that he would take to make sure that we were safe. And in all those years, I don't believe that there was any men that were lost to the fire. And I know on that day we had a close call, but we were able to get out of it on the advice of our older crew members out there. So many of the younger firefighters here, many of them went out many times. I personally did not go out after that because I went away to school and had an out-of-state job. But many of our men out here that are still around, younger ones, and have had that firefighting experience that they need to share. And I hope that you'll be taking their stories. There's many interesting stories that they have of the dangers that they went through as well as the good times that they had. Well,
that's about that fire and smoke was. So thank you for coming there and listening to us. Good evening too.
Here for the wonderful tale of the snowballs. At this time, I would like to call upon a Forest Service worker, Aiden, right? Adam, I'm sorry, almost. Right now, I'd like to turn the mic over to Adam.
Thank you very much. I'm Adam Liddell, I'm the Quest District Ranger, and I just want to say thank you everyone for attending this, and I'm extremely honored to be here representing the Carson National Forest and everything that's good with the Snowballs, the Taos Pueblo, our partnership and our relationship. It's an extremely important relationship that we have with them. And aside from Smokey Bear, that's a very important story for the Forest Service, we all know that, but what that really did is it paved the way for our partnership and the relationship we have now. So I just want to share a few things here. One of the things that I find very symbolic, I got this from our recently retired FML, Ray Corral, who wanted me to share this. But it's our Quest District Ranger patch from Engine 671. And it just shows how we work together, the partnership that we have working with the Taos Pueblo on fires. So I wanted to share that from our recently retired forest management officer. I have a little story of my own. A few years ago, working on the Luna fire, I was the winter sports coordinator here, and I was on a ridge, and I was with the Taos Pueblo. And as a lot of you can remember, it started snowing. That put that fire out, or put it to bed for us, anyways. But we were sitting up there, we were joking about the snowballs, we were joking about just how the fire was being put out by the snow. It was just a good time that we had together. And it was, once again, us working together in land management, working as partners, working as peers, working as friends, working together, all paved the way from Mr. Samora here. And with that, I don't want to take a lot of time. I know it's getting late. But I wanted to share a nice blanket that we have for you and say thank you for everything. It's nice and comfortable and fluffy.
Right now, I'd like to open it up to the audience here for questioning and answering. If you have any questions for our elders up here or anybody else. First of all, I'd like to call upon Mr. Cameron Martinez. Mr. Cameron Martinez, back in the day in 1999, I was a wilderness ranger. He was my first boss. He was head of the VIA Northern Region, a man of extensive knowledge and resources in fire management and land management.
Good evening, everyone. Like Dominic said, my name is Cameron Martinez, and I started as a snowball in 1974. Like Mr. Suazo, I was 17, and that year I went to the forestry office here at the Pueblo, and I met up with Al Lujan, a buddy, and I said, Al, I want to be a snowball, and he gave me an application. I filled it out and went to the clinic for a physical, passed that, and I was ready. Come May 3rd, 1974, right after the races, the next day we get a fire call, and I'm at my Ottawa Place house on Guacama side. That's on the south side of the village, and the fire call came in. I was one of the first guys right at the bus, signing up to go on this fire. I didn't know where the fire was going, and I called my mom because I was going to school in Albuquerque. I called my mom and said, "Hey, Mom, I'm still in high school. I want to go on this fire. So you can call the school and tell them I'll be gone for I don't know how long. I keep calling them and tell them that I'm coming back to school." So my dad was the fire boss, the crew boss, and Mr. Zamora acknowledged my late father as being on the fire crew all those years. And there's some other people here that I know when I was growing up in the 60s, when the fire crews were being called from Taos Pueblo, like Mr. Suazo had mentioned from the rooftop. I would see who was going in. I knew all those men that were going in, and some of the guys like Ralph Lujan, his father, Orlando Lujan, was one of the firefighters that would go all the time. And so in 1974, we got a crew together, and we went to Mayhill, New Mexico. We spent 2 weeks down there on a fire. That was my first fire there that I enjoyed very much, because at 10 years old, when my father came home from a fire in California, and I don't know if it was with Adolf, he came in late that night, and I heard him come in the house, and the next morning I got up and I went in to go say good morning to them, and he had his fire check there. And at the time, in 1960, that was a lot of money. And I looked at it and go, wow, that's a lot of money. That's what I want to do. I want to be a forest ranger and make a lot of money and see the West, see all those mountains in the West. And I ended up doing that. I got my degree in forestry and went to work for I worked for the Forest Service a couple of seasons in the summer, but I ended up with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and working there. And I have lots of fire stories, but I won't go into them. One of the fire stories I like to tell people is I was on a fire on the Gila. Yeah, it was on the Gila. And I was qualified as a division supervisor, and I was also qualified as a operations section chief. And those are the top level positions on fires. And I learned as a snowball how to work together, how to work as a crew, and that's what Mr. Suazo alluded to, is that a lot of our Taos Pueblo Snowballs already knew how to work together. They knew how to clean ditches together. There's a lot of things that go on at Taos Pueblo where a lot of the men work together as a crew, and so you know each other, you know how each other works. The other thing that Mr. Suazo and Adolf know is that I was looking at who's sponsoring this, and Indigenous Ecologists. All of us that are from Taos Pueblo, if you've ever participated in our ceremonies, our traditions, you spend a lot of time outdoors, and if you're paying attention to Mother Nature, what the wind is doing, what the animals are doing, how green is the vegetation, lightning, all of those things, you get a sense that you can kind of predict what's going on, and through those things that I experienced as a young man, as a young boy growing up at Taos Pueblo, those helped me see how Mother Nature was acting when there was a wildfire going on, and so I just wanted to mention that it's within us for those people that have experienced being out in the forest, being out, whether you're farming, whether you're in the forest doing things, or you're fishing, those kinds of things. And so, I want to get back to the story, because I was on a fire on the Gila, and I ran into the Carson Hotshots, and I was the division supervisor on this big section of fire. And I come up, and I know the Carson Hotshots. I've met them before, and I was going down the line, and I hear a voice that's familiar to me, because growing up I heard this voice, and it was Ralph Lujan. He was running a chainsaw for the Carson Hotshots at the time, and we just had a great time. It was like a reunion out there on the firelight, because he was a former snowball, just like me. And the other story I want to talk about real quickly is I was on a fire in Southern California on the Angeles National Forest, and I was there as a crew rep, checking on fire crews, and I just checked on a San Carlos women's crew, and I saw two guys in Forest Service uniforms standing on a little hill over there, and I looked at that. I looked at them, and one guy looked familiar, and I go, man, he looks like he's from Taos. And I walked over there, and sure enough, it was the late Tony Romero, and we just had a good time. I grew up knowing him, and it was like, a reunion, and had a good time visiting with him, and then I left. But throughout these years that I've been associated, starting off as a snowball, it has really, it was really something that I wanted to do, and I know there's a lot of our Taos Pueblo people out there that that's what they like to do. They know how to fight fire, they can work together, and it's always a safe assignment that they've gone on. I know, because I've watched them all my career in natural resources. And I want to say that those ones that are in school right now, you have to be very aware that Adam, I think it was Adam, yeah, the ranger from Cuesta, talked about being cooperative with our tribes, not only for Taos Pueblo, but other areas, because I was involved with the Cerro Grande fire and other fires, and the Calf Canyon Hermit's Peak fire, where sometimes our cooperating fire teams don't know how sacred this land is. They don't know how sacred this land is. And I just want to point this out because it's very important that everybody knows that as a fire team is making plans to stop large fires, especially now in this climate changed area, climate change times, they were looking at contingency, stopping the fire over in Amole Canyon, Rio Chiquito Canyon, Taos Canyon, and Taos Ski Valley. But they didn't bother to say, we're going to stop it before it hits our traditional lands, Taos Pueblo lands. And you have to be aware that when our tribal folks are meeting with them, that's not an option, just like it wasn't an option for Santa Clara or San Alfonso Pueblos. We have to be aware that, as Taos Pueblo Snowballs, as Taos Pueblo people, we need to make sure we're protecting our lands and our natural resources. And my whole upbringing as a Taos Pueblo Snowball, I went out on fires with a lot of men that aren't here today, like late Marcelino Trujillo. I went on a lot of fires with him, and like Adolf and Gilbert are saying, it was quite an adventure. It was quite a great time to be with those firefighters that are no longer here. And the young ones that have come up now that are on our crews, we look forward to building up those crews, because at Taos Pueblo we could put out 2 Taos Pueblo Snowball crews. And at the same time, we had crews in Peñasco and El Rito, Cuesta, and now we don't have those crews anymore, those 20-person crews. So, times have changed, of course, and we all need to look at building those crews up, because those crews not only do firefighting, but they can do thinning. There's a lot of thinning and other forest activities that need to be done on our tribal lands, and as partners with the Forest Service, BLM, and those agencies that we look forward to working with in order to protect our land. So I just want to say ta'a, and thank you to everybody that is here, and thank our Taos Snowball elder. I've known Adolf all my life, and I remember running behind his pickup truck and jumping on as I was making my way to the village, and then jumping off. So he just looked at us, and that's what we did, because we lived down the same road he did. And so I just want to say thank you very much to all of you, and like everybody that was mentioned, I got my inspiration and my desire from all those firefighters that were in his age group, and that's what made me want to be a firefighter and see the West and get as much experience as I could, and that's what I did. And I did that, and I'm really proud that I had that beginning as a Taos Snowball. So thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. It's funny because I used to jump on his truck like that. He lives right up from me. Is there anybody else who has any questions they'd like to ask? There's a mic.
I didn't have any intentions of speaking tonight, but I worked as an emergency hire at BIA Forestry here at Pueblo, but I just wanted everybody to stand up that had any part of fire, and we got to also remember the women that have been a part of fire as well. Our camp crews, a really big part of it as well. So I would just like everybody to stand up that's had a part of fire and acknowledge them.
Thank you, Dean. Any more questions? Don't be shy. If I can stand up here and talk, you guys can too. I'd like to call up Mr. Nate Cordova to share some of his educational experience or how he got to where he's at. He's actually a professional in the fire business. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. Like Dominic said, my name is Nate Cordova. I am from Taos Pueblo, and this is pretty impromptu, so forgive me. But I just want to say thank you to Mr. Samora and Mr. Suazo for, sharing the story and letting everybody hear that. I think it's very important for everybody to know the truth and the real story of Smokey Bear. So, like I said, my name is Nate Cordova. I'm here from Taos Pueblo, and I have kind of a diverse story, not wanting to take much time up, but I started working for Taos Pueblo with Dominic on the Taos Pueblo Wilderness Ranger, basically trails crew. We kind of did everything. And I can tell you that it was very exciting. It was very fun, not only for me, still being in high school, being able to be outside, but on my own tribal lands. Still, to this day, one of the best jobs I've ever had. Moved on from the Pueblo, and I went to Flagstaff, where I completed my forestry degree there at NAU. And then I jumped into the Forest Service because I wanted to be a hotshot. And so I had the great opportunity to get on with the Forest Service, and at first I shotgunned my application everywhere. And I think, all the Forest Service people in here remember A-View and how fun all of that was. And that's where I started and could not figure it out. I think it was harder than school, basically, to figure out how to get my application in, but I did with success. So it's kind of special to me that where I got my job with the Forest Service was down in Ruidoso, Smokey Bear Ranger District. And the reason why that is because with this story, wow, Capitan Gap. Well, spent a lot of time in the Capitans. Started there with Smokey Bear Hotshots, and like everybody in fire that has discussed, the amount of traveling that we did was amazing. Got to see everywhere from Florida to Washington, you name it. Been out to all these random areas. Spent my time down there for roughly 12 years. Did numerous things in fire, from hot shots to engines to fire prevention. Moved on, did a small stint, with the BIA, and realized that I wasn't done with the hot shot world. Currently work, with Carson Hot Shots, and that's where I am currently. But the biggest thing that I can say with, my education, it doesn't just come from sitting in front of a computer or reading books. It's exactly what these gentlemen are saying here. It's about being outside. It's about looking at your surroundings. It's about working with other people that are around you, sharing those stories, sharing those laughs, when you're in Douglas, Arizona, and it's 118 degrees and you're wondering, what am I doing? But the mop-up is real, I don't care, what people say, how glamorous the job is. It's hard, it's dirty, it takes time away from your family, but it's thinking about, what the elders that are still currently here and that are past, what they went through, what they did, and I try to carry that on. They talk about singing and how fun it was and everything. Yeah, at times, with the crew, I'm just there kind of humming those things to myself, dragging myself up that hill, whether that's scouting or whatever we may be doing. So, it is a long journey. I like to think that I have a good basis, of understanding, whether that's from the educational side or from the hard side of getting out there and, observing Mother Nature at her finest. That's how I like to see it, Fire knows no boundaries, but what does and what we can do is work together and, use those partnerships and use everything that we have around us, because at the end of the day, that's all we have as a community there at Taos Pueblo is each other. It's not going to change anytime soon. We all see climate change and we see how this world is changing, but one thing we have is each other, and to branch those partnerships and use everything that we have, because like I'm saying, like all we have is us, and what we have in our small community, everything matters to us, whether that's the animals in the hills or that's the water that provides the strength for our crops to grow. So I just want to say thank you, to these gentlemen that are up here, Adolf Samora, Gilbert Suazo, and everyone else that has had a part with the snowball growth and within the fire community. And thank you very much. Have a good evening, all.
I have a question.
Yes.
Oh, do I have to go up there? So this is Holly Summerberries. We're just wondering, now that we know the truth about Smokey the Bear, what is this? Will the story go on further for the future, to the nation, to the world, the actual true story of Smokey the Bear?
From what I understand, and from the past, during COVID, at the beginning of COVID, we had actually taken my uncle Adolf Samora down to Capitan, and they recognized him. I think it was a bureau chief from the federal government that recognized him. Also, PBS has done a special on Smokey the Bear. And I would hope that it would continue and maybe be recognized nationally, because Smokey the Bear is a national icon. If our elders did not find Smokey the Bear, there wouldn't be no Smokey the Bear. He is overall the mascot for fire prevention. I remember being at the day school and seeing Smokey the Bear coming in and teaching us about how to put out campfires, how to take care of fire, and how to respect it. So my hope, and how I came up with this idea was that, with that hope, was that not only are we going to honor my uncle and the story that he has to share with not just the Taos Pueblo community, but entire communities and even the nation. So hopefully, this event tonight will bring that attention to him and the Smokey the Bear, and also the Snowballs. So, thank you.